Welcome back to the Wide Right Podcast. I'm Manny Navarro of The Athletic. He is Carlos Ledo, Kane Stradamus, as he likes to call himself. Today is October 22nd, Wednesday. Miami Hurricanes fans no longer walking around with a strut, Carlos. They're all back to being PTSD fans following Miami's loss at home on Friday night to Louisville. It's been several days. I'm curious how you've recovered from what happened on Friday.
Well, thankfully, we've had a few days so I can get over the hangover. I'm not talking about the game. I'm talking about just a little hangover of having a drink after that game. But I think all Canes fans are walking around right now like Marcellus Wallace after he had that encounter with the Gimp in Pulp Fiction. Just a little bit of limp, uncomfortable sitting because they had a rough outing against Louisville. But, I mean, listen, we talked about this before the season. You asked me who I thought the most dangerous game on the schedule was. I said Louisville. You asked me again a couple weeks ago. I said Louisville again just because I thought coming off games against Notre Dame, Florida, and Florida State, especially Florida State and Florida back-to-back and having a bye week and playing on a Friday night, I could see the emotional letdown coming. I was hoping they would prove me wrong. But, hey, look, 36 seconds left. They're down 3. They're about to kick a field goal to go into overtime, and they could possibly salvage this game, and it ends with an interception. So, I mean, as bad as that game was, as many things that went wrong for the Hurricanes, there was a lot that went wrong for the Hurricanes. They still had a shot to win that game against a good Louisville team. That says something about how good they are, but it also says something about the failure of their not being prepared to play that game and not being ready to overcome a challenge. We talked about it all season. One of the things that I thought was going to be interesting was going to be when the Hurricanes finally got punched in the mouth, when they faced an offense that could get them down. How do they counter that, right? How do they come back from it? When you have a team that can counterpunch you, instead of you front running the entire game, now you have to play from behind. How do you handle it and how do you change who you are to be able to overcome that? You would hope they had built enough systems in place to be able to just say, hey, listen, we're going to keep being who we are, keep playing our game. We'll eventually get over the hump and get through this because we believe in what we do. But, Carson Beck started trying to change who he was and trying to do too much. And that ultimately costs them. And we talked about it last week that they were the same team week to week. We had seen a consistent Hurricanes team. We hadn't seen improvement. We'd seen the same team from game one, and it bit them in the ass. Because if you're not getting better, in effect, you're getting worse, especially when you get into conference play. Like we talked about, conference teams are going to have a better game plan against you. And when you're facing better coaches like a Brian Braun, you're going to have a game plan against you because they see you every year. They know who you are. They know your personnel. There's more tape of you by the time they get to that conference play, and they're ready for it. And they just didn't rise to the occasion.
Yeah, Jeff Brom and his staff had a hellacious.
My bad. Brian Braun was his brother?
Yes, the offensive coordinator. But it's okay. We know where you were going with that.
Well, he had a hell of a game plan too.
Listen, Carson Beck, 4 interceptions. Miami running game non-existent again for the second week in a row after Florida State kind of laid the groundwork there of, hey, let's force Carson Beck to beat us. And he did. He beat Florida State, did not beat Louisville through 4 interceptions in that game. 3 of them, I think, were certainly his fault. Bad decisions, forcing the ball into windows that weren't there. But he's not the only one to blame. Miami had 26 missed tackles, according to Pro Football Focus, and did not do a good job in the opening 2 series as a defense, which, let's face it, they've done a great job most of the season. Corey Heatherman and his group are allowed to probably have a few bad series, right? I mean, it's human nature. You're going to have that, especially against a really good coach like Jeff Brom, who's going to come out with 3 quarterbacks and try to fool you with a bunch of different looks and things that he hasn't unveiled. But like you said, Carlos, 36 seconds to go. They're on the 31-yard line. How do you think, Mario sort of handled that moment? Were you okay with him being aggressive and not playing for the field goal, even though his quarterback had already thrown 3 picks, technically 4, one that was wiped off the board by a questionable roughing the passer penalty there?
Well, I think the idea was you wanted to get a little bit closer to make sure it was a chip shot, to make sure you had the opportunity to get into overtime, or at the very least, maybe you bust one and you score a touchdown and win the game, right? So I don't mind the aggression. To me, the issue with that last play was Carson Beck had made his mind up before the ball was snapped of where he wanted to go to the football. The reason why he did that was Louisville mugged everybody onto the line of scrimmage. It looked like they were coming with everyone. And the minute that Beck caught that football, or even right before as it's touching his hands, you could see him already turning to throw the ball into the flat, as opposed to seeing what the defense had done post-snap. And what the
Right.
defense did was they bailed. The linebacker charged the flat, and rather than making a decision of, okay, I can't go there, throw the ball away or turn and get upfield and get a couple yards to center the ball, call a timeout and get a field goal, Carson Beck just caught it and threw it without even reacting. So, I mean,
Right.
it's I wouldn't put that one on Mario. I put that one squarely on Carson Beck for not seeing what happens post-snap.
Right. And look, in the end, Shannon Dawson and the entire coaching staff has to wear it. Mario's tried to tell everybody it's not just Carson Beck's fault that he threw 4 picks and Miami lost this game. There were a lot of areas where this team let you down, but I think you hit on a key point, Carlos, which is if you're not getting better week to week to week, you're actually getting worse because teams are getting better and they're better at game planning for you. And I think that's the number one concern coming out of this game is, can Miami counterpunch now, right?
Now you're just dead. Now you're just frozen. You're like El Sanana. There's nothing going on.
Is that better?
All right, now you're back.
Now I'm back. Okay. So we're gonna try to run this off of my phone, and we'll see if this works. And if not, I don't know what else to do at this point because, like I said, I've tried adding pods. I've done everything else in the house to try to make this work. And
you're gonna have to start doing games and podcasts from Starbucks like a hipster.
I think I'm gonna have to do that pretty soon. It's unfortunate. I don't want that, but it's the sad reality of my life here. All right, Carlos.
Now you're good. You know what? The phone is working. It's AT&T, baby.
Where were we? Should we just start the whole show over and do it all over again, or what? What do you think?
Pick it up from when we finished that first conversation. You got to start with you were talking about Malachi Tony being an FU guy and all that kind of stuff. Like there's that sort of conversation you were having.
Okay. All right, here we go. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2. I'm going to do the little cross and say this is where I'm cutting and starting over. All right. With 10 minutes to go, we're going to take note of that. All right. So what I was trying to say, Carlos, before we ran into some more internet issues here at Casa Navarro is I think for me, when I look at this team and I look at them going forward, I want to know, can they pick themselves off the mat, right? We've seen Miami teams sort of fall apart after their first loss. I don't suspect that this is what's going to happen with this team because you've got some alpha males. But I think for me, what I took away from that Louisville game was they were never in control. Jeff Brom came out, hit him in the mouth, kept pushing them around, doing what they dictated the terms. And so for me, when I think of great Miami teams, I think of FU guys. And what do I mean by FU guys? That means guys that don't give a damn what's happening in the game and they take over, right? Ed Reed, he's going to make an interception. He's going to make something happen on the backside. Roscoe Parrish, he's going to take a punt back. He's going to do something in the passing game. Like, there are FU guys all over the field on great teams. There are FU guys on this roster, right? Ruben Bain is certainly an FU guy. He can take over a game. Malachi Tony is an FU guy. But I guess for me, the most disheartening thing of that Louisville loss was it never felt like Miami honestly had a chance until the very end when they were driving. And you're like, well, maybe Carson Beck finally makes magic happen here.
Yeah, and I think, speaking of another FU guy, Keontae Scott, he made that huge play, picking up the fumble or causing the fumble and Poisoner picking it up there in the fourth quarter to give him a shot to get within 3 to begin with. And he's been fantastic all season. I think he's been the best defensive back on this team from start to finish so far. Although Ruben Bain is an FU guy, they found a way to neutralize him. And they did a lot of things that we talked about. They added additional tight ends. They widened the surface. They cut him and Mesidor, which led to Mesidor at some point being hurt a little bit, not being 100%. The other thing we noticed in this game was, the great Miami teams like you talk about had a bunch of FU guys, not just on the starting lineup, but they had backups that were nipping at their heels and wanted to get on the field. That would be FU guys too eventually. Those backup defensive ends, they're nowhere near in the class of Mesidor and Bain. They didn't even bring a little bit of energy. They were getting destroyed out there. Right. The other thing is you hope that you have more than just Malachi Tony on your team to be able to make plays on offense. CJ Daniels was good, but he wasn't great. This game, he didn't make huge explosive plays except for one play in the first quarter. It was all Malachi Tony basically on offense, and you can't win a game like that. And when your quarterback is your biggest weakness, your biggest detriment on offense, that's not a way to win. You at least need him to be steady, even, and average. If he's average, you can win. If Carson Beck would have been average that game, had he thrown 2 picks and 2 touchdowns, or 1 touchdown and 2 picks, they win that game. But he was awful, which was the problem. The other thing is they beat themselves, man. Look at the penalties. They had, again, another game where they were committing way too many penalties. 9 penalties for 68 yards. Not only were they a lot of penalties, but they were penalties in crucial moments. They were drive-killing penalties, putting them in 3rd and 25, extending drives for Louisville, taking the ball away from themselves. So it was situations where you felt like they had a chance to maybe break through, but they shot themselves in the foot, not only through penalties, but the turnovers.
Yeah, it really was a messy, sloppy performance overall from an execution standpoint. And yet, again, 31 yards and 36 seconds away from winning the game or tying it and sending
it was messier than
overtime.
J-Lo and Ben Affleck's whole relationship arc. I mean, it's rough.
It really was. I wanted to take a look at some more numbers from the game here. We can flash them up on the screen here as you and I have our conversation.
Forget the phone ringing. I'm in my actual law office where I should be doing work, but I'm here doing the podcast, so don't worry about that.
It's all good. 63 yards rushing, as we mentioned. Malachi Tony and Jordan Lyle with the 2 longest runs of the night. That's not going to win you a lot of football games. Tony carrying such a heavy load in the passing game as well, 104 yards after the catch. Just I think too reliant on one guy to really carry you to victory there. In the biggest sense of the word there, Carlos. Going forward, I wanted to take a look at the ACC standings and what sort of hole Miami is in now, because the reality is this: if they lose again, they're not making the college football playoff. They're not making the ACC. There's a chance they could not even make the ACC championship game right now. We'll get into that as well. But the bigger point here is just that they're in a huge hole because they're just one of 8 teams with 1 loss or less already. And so it's a big race. You have a lot of teams that all have a chance to make it to Charlotte. And there's a real possibility that, Georgia Tech, Virginia, SMU, or Pittsburgh, or even Duke or Louisville can just have the tiebreaker or whatever it is they need ahead of Miami to get in and keep Miami out. Now, that could end up being a good thing in a strange way, because if Miami runs the table and they go 11-1, and they don't make it to Charlotte, I think there's probably a really good chance that they make the college football playoff. In fact, the Athletic, who we have somebody who actually does all the math and does all the silly numbers, still has Miami in its 12-team field. When you take a look at this little graphic here, you see the chance to make the playoff. Miami still is tied for the 4th best odds of making the college football playoff, 83%, them in Oregon. You can see the list of what their field looks like right now. But I think, the reality is, Carlos, they have no room for error whatsoever.
No, not at all. And you're also leaving your fate in the committee's hands if you don't win the ACC championship, if you don't get there. So the ideal path is to win the conference and get in automatically, which means you got to win out and then hope for the best. But now they've taken their destiny out of their own hands because of this loss. And we've talked about it, ad nauseum over the last couple of years. There's always a game they shit the bed in conference, at least one. Hopefully it's the only one, because what we've seen in the past pre-Cam Ward was they lose one, and like you said, they start a downward spiral, and they start losing 2-3 in a row. And then before you know it, they stop the bleeding, but the season's over. They've got nowhere to go. So the hope is that they get this thing right. They beat Stanford, and they're able to continue that momentum moving forward. The good thing is they have a get-right type of game against Stanford, who just beat Florida State, but let's be honest, Stanford isn't all that great. They're an average team. They're nowhere near as good as Louisville. And they're coming to Hard Rock. Not that it helps because, they just lost to Louisville at Hard Rock. But you would anticipate it's easier than having to fly across the country to Northern California and trying to beat Stanford at home, right? So they've got the home field advantage. They've got the opposing team coming across country, playing in a different time zone. And humidity.
With their backup quarterback, by the way. Their starting quarterback was injured in the win over Florida State.
If Mario loses this one, if he fumbles the bag on this one, I don't know what to tell you. At this point, then, it's pitchforks and torches time.
We'll talk about the Stanford game. I've got some more stats for you, but let's take a look at the ACC race, because I know one question a lot of people have is, well, what does this all mean? What are the tiebreakers? I'm not going to sit there and get into all the tiebreakers. We've played 2 ACC games. Miami has. So there's not enough to sort of explain it all. But if you want to look at who is left on the contender schedule, here's the look. You can see Miami's record: 5-1, 1-1 in the ACC. I put the ranking that the Athletic gives all the teams. This is what Chris Vanini does. So you see ATH rank. That's what the Athletic ranks them, and then you see the opponent winning percentage for the entire season. That's not just teams they've played, but teams that are remaining on their schedule as well. So you can see strength of schedule, so to speak. Opponent win percentage. Miami's 14th nationally. Georgia Tech obviously is in a very strong position right now. They're, I think, 7th in the AP poll, 2 spots ahead of the Hurricanes, 9th in our athletic poll. Their opponent strength of schedule ranked 54th. So, look, they've got Georgia at the end. That's always sort of a nightmare game for Georgia Tech. And Georgia, look, they're not the Georgia of old, but they're still a top 5, top 6 type team this year. So that's going to be a very interesting game. But in the end, Miami could use some help, right? That's the bigger picture here. And when you look at the remaining schedule for the 3 unbeatens, Miami at least plays SMU. They get them next week or after this Saturday, the following Saturday. But Virginia and Georgia Tech, who were Coastal Division rivals, are not on Miami's schedule. So, Carlos, when you look at that right there, the graphic I've got up there of the remaining opponents, is there a game that you look at for Georgia Tech or Virginia and you say, yeah, I can see them losing that in terms of the ACC race?
Listen, they both have a favorable path to the ACC championship right now. Virginia's got the Fighting Bill Belichick's, who are about to be eliminated from all of college football, along with
the 33rd team, Carlos.
The 97-year-old head coach with his 22-year-old girlfriend. Cal is average at best. Wake Forest is going to wake. Duke might be a challenge because it's on the road. They're a good team. They're solid. They're not great. Georgia Tech just beat them, but it was a tough game. Virginia Tech is down this year. So they've got a clear path there. I think they should be able to handle everyone. I think if I've got to pick one team on their schedule they may have some issues with, I'd say probably Duke on the road. Georgia Tech also pretty clear path. Syracuse is really down this year. NC State's okay. They're average, again, as they usually are. BC's bad. Pitt might be the only team that I think might give them some trouble, but again, that one's at home for them. So the thing for the Hurricanes to watch, though, I think, if Georgia Tech makes the ACC championship, the Hurricanes have to play, and their defense is right on par, if not better than Louisville's, which gave them a hell of a lot of trouble. SMU, they still got the Hurricanes. I don't know that SMU has that clear of a path. They've still got to play Louisville and Miami, but if they win out, they've cut themselves a pretty nice path there, and they're going to elevate their profile if they end up winning against Miami and Louisville the rest of the way.
All right, let's take a look at the rest of the schedule. Pittsburgh, in terms of the contenders, Pittsburgh 5-2, 3-1. Athletic has them ranked 30th. There's Louisville 5-1, 2-1 in the conference. They lost to Virginia already. Duke's coming off a loss to Georgia Tech, but they're 2-1. Ranked 45th, and then Cal, believe it or not, with that true freshman quarterback that they picked up from Oregon, is still 2-1 in the conference. They've got a chance, and they do get Virginia and SMU on the schedule, so they get at least 2 of the undefeated teams left. Of those teams, Louisville has the head-to-head over Miami, obviously, so the Canes need them to lose to somebody else. I'm not sure. They got Cal at home, which Cal, 5-2, not a great team. They have a loss to San Diego State. Clemson is down, and they get them at home. So the SMU game might be it. Yeah. And, Duke at this point.
Man, they can fight. Duke can fight their way back in if they beat Clemson and Virginia. Now they're down to Carolina and Wake to try and get into a shot or at least a tiebreaker situation. So having Virginia on the schedule is helpful for them.
Yeah. I just wanted us to be able to get a picture of who everybody else is playing on the schedule and how it's going to look here going forward. All right, Carlos, there's some problems with Miami that we need to get into, and I have more graphics and more stuff.
Yes, and it's overcrowding, too much traffic, and all the New Yorkers and people from California that moved down here from COVID. I need them all gone. That's the problem with Miami.
I love it. Let's get into. First of all, let's get into Miami's biggest issue right now, which I would say it's running the football, Carlos. And here's what I'm going to say. Let's compare right now. If I were to ask you, comparing last year's roster to this year's, which one had the better running game? Is it obvious, or is it a small distinction that last year's was better?
I think last year's was a little bit better.
A little bit, you say?
Yeah, probably a
Okay.
lot better. Probably a lot
Okay.
better. I would say, on average, maybe 25, 30 yards a game.
All right. This is last year's numbers. Okay. And there's a telling stat about run blocking. Do you know what that stat is?
What is it?
Run yards before contact. Right? How far down the field are your running backs getting
Hit,
before
right.
people are getting a body on them? Okay. Last season, Miami, among ACC teams, ranked 18th nationally. They were getting 2.37 yards a carry before contact. All right. And you look at the rushing yards per game, 188.9. You look at explosive runs. Miami had 49 explosive runs, 12 games of 100 yards or more. Pretty good, right? I mean, we're
Pretty damn good.
18th in the country. It's pretty good number, I think. Let's take a look at rushing yards before contact through 6 games this season. Where's Miami, Carlos?
Not even on the list.
108th. 108th. And I think we have to start talking about it. As good as this offensive line is at pass blocking, that's not enough push. When you're 108th in the country in yards before contact on a rush, that's bad.
And 41 yards less per game. I was said 25, 30. It's 40, actually 41, which is incredible.
18 explosive runs through your first 6 games. Look, Jordan Lyle was supposed to be a big part of this running game and just never materialized. Got hurt in the opener against Notre Dame, missed time, has come back, just has not been very, very good. But I ask you, Carlos, to hypothesize with me since you watch the games. Is it the play calling? Is it Shannon Dawson not running enough to the outside, as people say? He runs too much between the tackles. Or is it a personnel problem where your center and your guards are not doing a good enough job creating holes for those guys to get through? I get it. Teams are stacking the box. Florida State, we talked about this before. Florida State, loaded up the box. Louisville loaded up the box. You're not going to run the ball against us. But at some point, if you're a good offensive line, aren't you pushing somebody out of the way?
Yes. And I would say yes is the answer to all your questions. So it's all of that. People know I have not been the biggest Shannon Dawson fan. I'm not saying he's a bad offensive coordinator. I'm just saying he's not that great. And I've said that for a few years. And some people are starting to turn around and realize that now. So here's the problem. Last year, you had those numbers because you had a quarterback like Cam Ward that if you decided to press them was going to make you pay. Not only was going to make you pay because of his talent, but he also bought so much time that it was almost impossible for you to cover in the back end of the secondary. Eventually, somebody was going to break off a route, get open, and Cam was going to find him, or he was going to make plays with his legs on his own. So that threat of Cam Ward made teams play a little bit looser, create lighter boxes, and allow this team to get a little bit more push up front because they were playing against lighter boxes than they are this year. The other thing is I think they had a little bit more diversity in terms of their skill set in the running game, in the running back room, because you had a guy like Damian Martinez that had a little bit more giddy up, but he was also a bigger back. You had Mark Fletcher. You had was it a guy? The guy was from Nebraska, came over and left.
Yes, I know who you're talking about, but I forgot his name as well. That's right. How memorable he was.
Exactly. But you had at least some guys that you could turn to that had different skill sets. Now it seems like the running back all seems the same, right? You've got Mark Fletcher and you've got Marty Brown. They kind of look the same. They're kind of built the same, and they kind of have the same style. So that doesn't help. The other thing is when you are constantly running the ball in between the tackles and the A-gaps, right? Then the defense knows that you're going to do that. They're going to start stacking the box in those A-gaps. They're going to start slanting or twisting and then running A-gap blitzes and forcing you to try and make plays on the outside. And right now, they don't have the receivers to do that aside from Malachi Toney and Chase and CJ Daniels on occasion. The thing I've said about Shannon Dawson's play calling for years now is it lacks diversity in terms of how they end up running what they run, right? And one of the reasons for that is, one, the air raid in general is a zone-based offense, zone run scheme offense that doesn't have a lot of diversity in its run game. So he's used to having a lot of diversity. And two, they love running duo because they feel like they can bust people up front, step inside, and get a push. And that's what Mirabal likes to do. So he's adapted his offense to that. And he hasn't gotten more creative with the run game. They don't do a whole lot of pin and pull. The few times they did it in the game, they got some yardage off of it. They aren't doing a lot of motion and changing of formations to try and get into what they like to get into with different looks. And they also aren't doing different things like Louisville did, which was go some wildcat, throw some different formations at them, throw wrinkles that teams aren't seeing, that haven't seen week to week. When was the last time you saw the Hurricanes come into a game and completely confuse a defense in the first 2 drives? I can't remember, right? Like Louisville came in there and threw a punch right in their face with formations and different sets that made them confused on defense to the point they gave up a quick 14 points in the first 2 series. They don't do that on offense. They are static on offense in terms of what they do and what they present. They don't change who they are. And it worked last year because it can work, because he covered up a lot of holes. The other thing was the pass protection has always been, the last couple of years, it's been okay. But now with a guy that can't move around, now you start to notice that, hey, when you start bringing pressure on these guys, this guy's a sitting duck back there. He may make a move every once in a while and try and give him some yardage, but he ain't Cam Ward running around back there making you miss.
Right. Carlos, I wanted to throw these numbers up from the Louisville game. This is from Pro Football Focus. This is rushing direction in terms of where the runs went between the tackles, outside of the tackles. You can look. The averages on the inside were really, really bad. Let's take a look here at the season numbers as well.
And that left tackle spot that you see there, that was pin and pulls that they were trying to get on. They were pulling guard and tackle coming around the edge on the left side. They can't pull the other way, unfortunately, because Markel Bell and McCoy are not good pullers.
Right. Let's take a look at the season numbers, and you can see where Miami is having its most success running the football. It's off of left guard there in terms of when they do run left, and then off of right guard, they're averaging 5 yards a carry. But outside of the tackles, not a lot of attempts. One jet sweep on the entire season, and Malachi Tony scored on it. What is that? What do those numbers show you? I know it's a lot to digest. Those are a lot of numbers, but what does it show you?
They are an inside focused run game, right? They're running a lot of dual. They're running a lot of inside zone, and they're not doing a lot of pin and pull stuff. They're not trying to get outside. They're not down blocking and pulling and coming around. They're not doing a whole lot of outside zone, trying to get a guy on the edge, trying to allow him to break and then make plant and cut and go have a back cut, find a hole and do something. They're not doing split zones where they're blocking one way and bringing the tight end across a lot. They were earlier in the season. They've sort of given up on that a little bit. So to me, it's like they've honed in on this fact that we are so big and we are so strong that eventually we're just going to out-muscle the teams we're playing. I don't care what kind of front they throw at us. This is who we are, and this is what we're going to do. And that's great. That's great to have that kind of identity. But at the same time, you have to diversify that a little bit so it can make it easier for you to run inside the way you want to. You can't just constantly just hit your head against the wall and expect that brick wall to break down eventually. You might make a crack, but you're going to split your head open before it happens. They're going to have to try and do some different things to try and make it easier for the run game. And there's things they could do, man. I mean, not only formationally, but I think you have to take cues from other teams and see what works. I think doing some wildcat stuff with Malachi Tony could put pressure on teams. And you don't have to substitute Carson Beck out to do that. You catch him by surprise. You line up Beck at receiver like they do a lot of times with a lot of teams to get that confusion, not have the personnel switch out on defense and prepare for it. Have him run some wildcat stuff. He could actually throw the ball, as we saw on Saturday during the 2-point conversion. He was a quarterback in high school. So that gives you that diversity of offense. And what it does is makes the defense play you 11 on 11 and not say, okay, the quarterback's dead on the run game. We know he's not going anywhere. We're going to focus all of our attention on the running backs and the offensive line, and we're going to play those gaps. Because what ends up happening is, like last year with Cam Ward, he didn't run the ball a whole lot, but he was a hell of a threat. And you knew if he decided to pull the ball, you were going to give up 20, 30 yards. So they have to do that. Mm-hmm. They also need to – they did this a couple times on short yardage, bring in additional offensive linemen. They threw in Ryan Rodriguez a couple times to add more bodies up front and get more push. If you really want to be dominant up front, do that in the open field. Start knocking heads back, getting them tired and really pushing up against them. Add an offensive lineman as a tight end, bring a guy in. And then also got to go more 2 tight end sets and try and get some more push up front. Because at the end of the day, you only got 2 receivers that are doing anything right now, right? CJ Daniels and Malachi Tony. Might as well bring in the second tight end and try and bang some heads up front and loosen some things up that way and give yourself a little bit more push up front. The other thing I think they need to do is, if you're going to be an inside-based run game, and this is something I've complained about Dawson for years now, is they don't do enough RPO. They need to run RPOs where they are forcing the backers up, attacking that inside run game, and running slants right behind them, right? Or seams right behind them where those backers have committed. Now you throw it over their head and you make big plays that way. There's not enough RPO in their offense.
I love it. This is a full and total breakdown that I'm sure fans, when they talk about what
Which
can
has
they
been
do.
ignored for years, and now people are starting to realize that. Now, you didn't listen to me last week, and I told you exactly what was going to happen.
We did talk about what Louisville would do, and I asked you the question. I put you on the spot. If you're Louisville, what are you doing on this defense? And you painted a pretty clear picture. Let's talk about another issue besides the running game for Miami and what they need to fix there. Penalties. You brought it up earlier, Carlos, and I decided to look it up. Where this is the top 25 teams in college football and who is the most penalized in terms of yards per game. You can see right here, Miami averaging 61 yards a game, close to 62 yards per game in penalties. That's top 30. Now, the reason I decided to include the top 25 teams here is because we actually got, and we're going to get to the mailbag in a little bit, but we actually got a question from one of our readers regarding, is it normal for a team like this to have this many penalties? Well, there are a lot of top 25 teams on this list, Carlos, who are in the top 30. Texas, Cincinnati, Texas A&M, Mississippi, Texas Tech, and Louisville, as you see there. Some other teams in the top 25. Notre Dame is there. Tennessee, LSU, all in the top 50. USF is there at the marker. So penalties are an issue for teams that are successful. But it feels like for Miami, it was really costly in this last game because it felt like anytime they started to build some momentum on offense, they kind of shot themselves in the foot.
And it's like we talked about, I think it was, if it wasn't last week, it was a week before. It's not just the penalties, it's stupid procedural penalties that kill you, right? And penalties at the wrong time. Like I can take a pass interference penalty if we're not giving up a touchdown, a hold to save a quarterback or a big hit on somebody, and have that on occasion. But the consistent false starts, right? The stuff that's just dumb, legal substitutions, things like that, you just can't have. You just can't have mental errors. The thing you really can't have is you can't have penalties and turnovers. If you have penalties and turnovers, you're pretty much dead. And they still almost overcame that. That shows they're a good team. But if you're a really good team, you can't have both. If you have both, you're already 2/3 in the hole, and you're almost done.
Yep. I wanted to take a sort of broader picture here because we are at the midway point of the fourth season of the Mario Cristobal era really quickly and to sort of show the overall progress movement in terms of some key stats. And this is all conference ranking. So you see ACC rank, but it's where they rank in the team, among the teams. You can see last year, number one offense in the country, big reason why they went 10-3. They're averaging close to 11 points less per game or averaging already 11 points less per game as an offense. As a defense, much improved. Number one scoring defense.
Compare that offense to 2023. What does
Yes.
What does that show? It's basically the same. What's the difference between 2024, 2023, and 2025? What's the big difference? Is Cam Ward there? No. That's the difference. But people kept saying, you're crazy. How is it that you're going to make the claim that Cam Ward was changing plays at the line of scrimmage? He was responsible for that big offensive turnaround. It's Shannon Dawson. He's a genius. Where's your genius now? Where's your genius now? Huh? I told you. You didn't want to. I hate it. I didn't want to do this, man. I didn't want to do this. But like I told you before, I am the Voldemort of Canes football. When you want the truth, you come to me. Put your trust in me.
All right, Carlos. Look, there's a couple differences between 2023 and 2025, right? Namely defense. You're giving up 7 points fewer per game. So I guess my bigger question here is now as we kind of look at these numbers and we saw what Carson Beck did in this game. Do Shannon Dawson and Mario Cristobal need to change the game plan on offense and say, F it, we're a team that wins with defense? So they need to do that.
I think they can make simple modifications to get this team to about 35 points a game or be good enough where they don't cost their defense games. Look, as bad as the defense played early on in the game and they missed 26 tackles, which, by the way, that's 34% of their season total in one game, which is pretty bad. After those first two series, they forced 4 straight punts, right? Louisville only scored 2 more times after that. They scored 10 points the rest of the way. The defense settled down and made plays. They got a turnover late in the game.
If you give up 24 points, you should win every game in college football. If that's your average.
And they gave up 1 score basically off a fake field goal, essentially, because they got them down to the half-yard line, and they pushed it in from there. But what I'm saying is the defense is solid. They settled in. They're good enough to win. I think if Miami just modifies the way they play offense a little bit, just a little bit more diversity. And the one thing they need to really focus in on, I think they need to hammer this into Carson Beck's head. Unfortunately, he got drunk off the first two deep balls he threw to Malachi Tony and to C.J. Daniels. When he hit that first one to C.J. Daniels and he was able to hit that slot fade to Malachi Tony for the huge throw down the sideline, that got him drunk on the fact that he thought he could throw the deep ball all game and he wasn't reading the defense. What he needs to do is what's called take the easy money. They need to focus on RPOs, quick game, and allow these guys, especially Malachi Tony, to make plays. He doesn't need to go 50 yards down the field to make a play. We've shown the yards after catch numbers. Get these guys the ball in space, get them some room, allow them to make plays with the football in their hands. And even if they aren't breaking big plays, you're moving the football. You're moving the chains. You are taking possessions away from the opponent's offense, and your defense is going to lock them down. And before you know it, you can win games 28-10. There ain't nothing wrong with that. I'll take that all day. Score a touchdown a quarter, keep them out of the end zone, and control the line of scrimmage and time of possession. That's fine. That's fine. That still is a W. You don't need to win pretty as long as you win, right? And I think if they make those modifications and adjust their thought process, that this is not the 2024 offense where we're going to be able to throw the ball deep all game or make big plays all the time. That's not who we are now. And we also can't just out-muscle people. We have to be smarter about the way we approach things. If they do that, they have a defense that finally complements them. And like we've talked about, shuts the door on teams and allows that offense to take over games. The problem is that the offense sputters way too much. Like we talked about, they have these quarters where they go through long dry spells of not moving the football and getting any points.
I wanted to take a look at some of the snap counts as we've reached the halfway point, and one, a couple different topics we'll dive into, but we'll start with defensive line because it feels like we've reached the halfway point, and Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor have played a shitload of snaps, and we know what it's like during the course of a season that guys can wear down, right? Physically, yeah. and Mesidor got nicked up in this game. We know about his history of bad feet, but look at the average. I mean, look at the total snaps for the season for Ruben Bain. 327, Carlos. I'm going to see if I can bring out the calculator here and figure it out, but 327.
That's like 2,000 Ricky Williams numbers. Where Dave Wanstead was just trying to run him into the ground.
Right. Does Miami here in the second half of the season have to go a little bit deeper on the defensive line so that they don't have a drop off? We just saw them set a season high with 26 missed tackles. There's a lot of guys on that defense playing heavy workloads. I don't know how many of those missed tackles were necessarily on the defensive line. Those guys were getting cut the whole game by Louisville. But there certainly was a good number at linebacker and at a couple of other spots in the secondary.
I think part of the reason why you're not seeing more snaps on the edges is, one, those two guys are phenomenal, and you want to keep them on the field as much as possible. Two, I don't think they trust their edges behind them. I don't think they're that good. So if it was just a slight drop-off, you could say, all right, I'll give them a breather, 3-4 snaps. I know I can count on these guys for that long. Then it'd be okay. But I think they feel like there's too big of a drop-off. And if we keep these guys off the field too long, then we might just give up a score. So That, to me, is the issue.
They're playing two linebackers a whole lot. Obviously, Mo Torre, Wesley Basainth. I think Basainth had 5 missed tackles in this game. Aguirre is playing about 20 snaps a game. But Chase Smith, Cam Pruitt is not playing. Like, he was supposed to be a stud. Kellen Wiley's supposed to be a stud. These guys, I mean, look, I get it. You're trying to save a red shirt if you can for some of them. But it's a little disheartening to me that they're not going a little bit deeper with some of their defensive rotations. I mean, if you had to rotate more, where do you think they need to rotate more?
I think you rotate Torre out a little bit more and put Aguirre in. I think, to me, Torre's really bad in pass coverage. He's shown that all season. He's just not the kind of guy you want him. He reminds me of Manny last year. He just could not cover anyone. And then he's hit or miss on occasion when it comes up to making plays at the line of scrimmage. Basainth has been okay. He hasn't been the superstar we all thought he was going to be coming out of high school. We said before the season started, this was the year he had to make that jump and be that guy at linebacker for Miami. And he's been okay. He just has not been that guy. The Hurricanes don't have a guy at linebacker, to me.
That's fair. I would agree with that. There's not a stud necessarily. The secondary, Damari Brown got his first start against Louisville. I think played like 20 snaps. In the end, Xavier Lucas played a whole bunch. So did Keontae Scott, the usual suspects back there. We're at the halfway point. You got to give an MVP to the secondary. Who is it?
Keontae Scott, no doubt, hands
Okay.
down. Because he's not only good in
Okay.
coverage, but what he does in the run game, run support, his blitzing is phenomenal. He does an amazing job. And whenever, if you watch him on film or you watch him during the games, when they call a blitz and they bring him from the corner from the nickel spot, he knows how to hide behind the defensive line and make it hard for the quarterback to pick him up and see him coming.
Fair enough. Let's take a look at Miami's offensive line snaps through the first half of the season here. Obviously, Samson Okunlola has kind of been the sixth man all year long. Ryan Rodriguez, Tommy Kinsler have gotten some work. S.J. Alafatui, who's probably going to be their starting center next year or one of the starting guards. He's played some, but the reality is they're basically going with the five. Is it time for a little fresh blood to get the running game going? Carlos, do you think
Listen,
would you make a change on the offensive line to get the running game going?
I've said from the beginning of the year that Okunlola needs to start at left guard. I don't trust Matthew McCoy. His run blocking is okay. His pass blocking is terrible. I will give you his numbers for the Louisville game in terms of his percentages from Pro Football Focus. Matthew McCoy versus Louisville threw up a 44.2 in pass protection, a 57.9 in run blocking. And that's been his pretty much his MO all season. He had decent games against Florida and Florida State, but outside of that, that's been who he is. He's not that kind of guy. Okunlola for the year, let's see, McCoy is 66.9 on run blocking, 58.8 pass blocking. Okunlola is slightly better in the run game, 69.5, 60.8 pass blocking. But to me, he looks more athletic and more able to do what they want out there on the field. I know they want to save him as a tackle, and his goal is to be a left tackle because that's where the money is. But right now, he's got to be a left guard. I don't think McCoy's earned that spot. The other thing is I think Anes Cooper has not been as dominant as we anticipate him being this season. For the season, he's at 68.3 in the run blocking, 63.5 pass blocking. You expected him to take it to another level and be that stud right guard, and that right side was going to be untouchable. Francis Manoa has been fantastic. 85.1 run blocking, 81.3 pass blocking. Rockenmeyer has been average. 66.3 in the run game, okay in the pass. He's been better. Pass blocking, 75.4. He's an upgrade from last year. But I think, to me, the guard spots have been a little bit disappointing. I especially with McCoy. Markel Bell, I think, is taking some steps forward, but he's had some bad games recently. He's at 60.6 now in the run game and 65.3 in pass blocking. He's a better pass blocker than a run blocker, and he's not a puller, which is the issue, like I said. You can't pull your left side because those guys aren't good pullers. That's why you're seeing those big runs coming to the left side, over to the left side, because you have Manoa and Anes Cooper, who are better pullers coming across.
Malachi Tony's been sensational. I think he's been the offensive MVP of the first half. My question to you is, other teams have seen it now, right? They've got the film on Malachi Tony. If you're a defensive coordinator, what are you doing to take him out of the game?
I mean, one of the things you would try to do is get more physical with him, but because they have him off the line of scrimmage so much, it's a little difficult to do that. The other thing is you have to prepare for the quick game with him, with the quick spot throws, and just be aware of where he is. If I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm high-lowing him. I've got someone underneath and someone over the top, right? So if he does decide to, run a deep route, we've got somebody over the top of him, or if he does catch something on the move underneath, I have another guy coming across that's shadowing him to be able to make a quick play on him and get him down. You're not going to be able to eliminate him completely from the game, but what you can do is limit his big plays, make sure he catches the ball within a 6-7 yard radius from the line of scrimmage, and make sure as soon as he catches it, you're taking him
down. Does Miami need another receiver pass catching option to emerge, or can they do it with two guys? You've got Tony playing at a high level. You have Daniels still making plays for you. But Keelan Marion really hasn't been highly productive in the passing game. In fact, I kind of blame him somewhat for the second pick of Carson Beck against Louisville, because he could have done something to take the DB out of the play, right? Even if it's offensive pass interference, you're not getting a turnover there. Josh Moore flashed against USF. Haven't seen him since. Tony Johnson, the kid they got from Cincinnati, I think played one snap in this game. Ray Joseph, clearly going to go in the transfer portal. Yep. And JoJo Trader, one snap in this game. He's played 10 snaps total. As we look at the second half, as these defenses start to make adjustments to slow down Miami even more, it feels like they really need a third or fourth guy to emerge in some of these offensive skill positions.
They need an outside receiver now moving forward, in addition to CJ Daniels, to be able to lighten the load on both him and Malachi Toney, because now you have to rotate coverage to respect that additional guy, that third guy, right? Which frees both CJ Daniels and Malachi Toney to have more one-on-one matchups. If you don't have that from a receiver, then you got to get it from the tight end. And that, to me, has been the most disappointing part. Bauman and Elijah Lofton are nowhere near what they had last year in terms of production from Arroyo at the tight end spot. And even, what's his name, Riley, I forgot. He's not here anymore, but whatever. So right. It's one of those issues. It's like, I was going to say Riley Green, but he's a country singer. Really good guy. I like that guy. But it's Riley Reid, is it?
I forgot the kid's name too.
This is what happens when you have
kids.
Short-term
and I cover the whole
If you're
country.
gone, you're gone.
You're gone. If you're not here anymore, good riddance. Go ahead. You were saying.
So I think the emergence
Riley
of
Williams, I think it was. No,
Riley Williams. There we go.
There you go.
So the emergence of a tight end will be helpful. Elijah Lofton was supposed to be this do-it-all guy. He was supposed to be the Swiss Army knife, and so far the guy's been a sport, unfortunately.
Running back room. Obviously, we talked about it at the top of the hour here, or much earlier in this conversation, that Jordan Lyle, just a complete non-factor this season for Miami. Which going into the year, all we heard from the coaches was, "Man, this guy's a beast." Is there anything that you think Shannon Dawson can do to free him up to get more of his strengths on the field?
I think you need to go with more zone stuff for him, some more pin and pull stuff. He's not a guy that you're going to run in between the tackles. That's not who he is. I think he's a guy that can get ahead of steam and make explosive plays, but you got to get him in space to do that. And I think the way you do that is running more outside zone stuff, more pin and pull stuff where you can get around the edge and get upfield. I think the same thing with Jamar Brown. He's got some explosiveness to him. He's shown some flashes of it, but hammering him in between the tackles doesn't show anything. And a lot of times he's going to have to bully his way for yardage. That's Mark Fletcher's game. Mark Fletcher can bang into the line of scrimmage and pick up 4 or 5 yards by using his strength to carry the defense and have the offensive line help push 4 or 5 yards down the field. I think Shamar Brown and Jordan Lyle aren't necessarily the same in that aspect. I mean, Shamar Brown can run in between the tackles, but I think they both feel more comfortable. You get them a little bit more of a head of steam going on the edges and trying to make plays that way, especially Jordan Lyle.
All right, Miami, let's talk quickly about the Stanford game. Stanford is 3-4, 2-2 in the ACC. They, I think, have all 3 wins at home. I think they're 0-4 away from Stanford. When you look at this matchup on paper, you say, oh, the Canes should absolutely destroy Stanford, right? I mean, they're a top 10 team. Stanford is not. You look at the rankings there in parentheses, yards per game allowed for Stanford's defense. Where they are kind of good, Carlos, is against the run. And part of that is because teams are opting to throw against them, overrunning it. But still, only 3.9 yards per attempt is still pretty good as a defense for Stanford. Obviously, that's going to be the number one thing they try to take away in this game. My guess is they're going to go through the same game plan. Hey, let's force Carson Beck to beat us. Let's make them uncomfortable. Where do you see Shannon Dawson making adjustments first and foremost in this game?
First of all, I don't think that word is in Shannon Dawson's vocabulary. I think we've proven that over the years. The word adjustment is not there. I mean, you saw it plain as day in this last game, and I've been saying it for years. He comes in with a script. That's what he wants to do. Eventually the defense adjusts and adapts, that like Louisville did. They hit a couple big plays on Louisville in the passing game. Louisville adapted. They started dropping their defensive backs and playing deep zone and giving Miami everything underneath. But Carson Beck decided not to take it. I mean, 2 of those interceptions, one, he had Bauman wide open underneath on a third down where he would have easily picked up the first down. Then he had CJ Daniels on an outcut on another one where he threw the interception to Malachi Toney. It's just one of these things where you have to take what the defense gives you, I think, is the important thing. That is one of the adjustments internally, philosophically, that you have to do is take whatever they give you. Like I've said before, you can't go broke making a profit. You get 4 or 5 yards on a pass play, you treat that as a 4 or 5 yard run play. That's what you want. You want to move the chains to get the ball downfield. It doesn't all have to be home runs. And the irony of it is, once you start making those plays and taking what the defense gives you, eventually the big plays open up because they have to adjust the coverage and how they're playing you to defend those quick routes and that quick game. But again, RPOs also have to be a part of it because you have to have that threat of run and pass to keep the defense off balance. But I think that's what they need to do. Incorporate more RPOs, use more quick game, take what the defense gives you, and be multiple in terms of how you get into your running game. The things you like to do more pin and pull stuff, but also formationally, move things around, motion, shifts, things of that nature. which he hasn't
All
done in
right.
3 years. So I don't know why I'm asking for it.
All right. From a defensive perspective here, Stanford's going to be playing with their backup quarterback. Gulbranson, I think, went down for the season against Florida State. They weren't a very good offense to begin with, but they beat Florida State and held them to 13 points. Florida State's vaunted offense only scored 13 points against them. They do have some interesting guys on offense. Their tight end is a big physical guy. I highlighted him in the preseason for the Athletic. He's actually a good player.
Does he have any eligibility left?
You're
We could
trying
use
to
him next
recruit?
year. We could use him next year.
Yeah, I think the point, it's a 30-point spread, Carlos. If I were to put gun to your head right now and say, hey, who are you taking in this game against the spread? Who are you picking? You think
I
Miami's
think
beating Stanford by 30 at home? They should, but do you think
they
they will?
should. Man, I don't know. I don't know, to be honest. I would lean yes, just because I think they're going to come out pissed off after what happened. I hope. I mean, that's what Mario said in the press conference. He gave that scowl he likes to give when he's upset. That they just need to get pissed off and go to work because nobody cares, and that's the truth. Unlike Shannon Dawson with, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. CJ Williams is Stanford's top receiver. He's a senior. Sam Roush is the tight end. Again, big dude, 6'5", 260. I would love to have him in this Miami offense.
What is he, a junior, Manny? Is he a sophomore or junior?
He's a senior. Elijah Brown, they're coming in here with a freshman quarterback. Okay, their running back is actually the backup, another freshman, Cole Tabb. He's averaging 4.6 yards a carry. Was the ACC running back of the week. So new guys. It feels like one of those situations where Miami is still trying to pick itself up off the ground, and this team, Stanford's a bunch of smart guys, Carlos. I'm not
you know
trying
what they're
to.
going to come in with? You know what they're going to come in with? All kinds of crazy tricks. They're going to run the annexation of Puerto Rico, the Little Giants.
I hope for Miami's sake they come out fast and they don't get punched in the mouth from the get-go, because we talk about PTSD, and that's a big theme for this week's episode. It's hard not to have that if you're a Miami fan and you look at what just happened to this team, losing at home as a 13.5-point favorite to a coach who outsmarted their coaching staff and is good at his job. And I think, for Miami's sake, when I look at the program as a whole, we get to the 3.5 year mark now. You start asking yourself, when does the talent take over, or when does the coaching get better? And Miami has the talent. This is as talented a team as they've had in 25 years. People have talked about Francis Mauigoa and Ruben Bain, first-round picks. We've talked about the improvements they made in the secondary. This is a good football team. But they're still losing at home, games that they shouldn't lose. And we're still sitting here saying, why can't they run the football with a really good offensive line? And we're still saying, where are the other playmakers? Why is there not more guys getting on the field and playing? Why are they relying so heavily on their best players? I think they're all valid questions.
I think this game coming in, I think you saw Corey Heatherman make adjustments and adapt to what Louisville was doing in game, which is difficult to do, especially with all the things that Louisville was trying to throw out at them, things they had never seen before. The defense themselves came out after the game and said, we hadn't seen all this stuff before, which was to be expected. I think Stanford's going to come out and do the same kind of thing. They're going to go out there and try and throw some things at Miami they hadn't seen before. But I think they're going to be more prepared for it this week than they were the week before. I think Heatherman's going to make the adjustments necessary to get these guys in the right spots to make sure they don't get burned by something crazy. They may have to give up a play or two here, there, and there, just because that's going to be natural. They can't cover everything. But as long as they're sound in their assignments, I think they hold Stanford to 10 points. I don't think Stanford's going to score more than that. I think Miami should win this one 31-10, 34-10, somewhere in that range. Ideally, they really get that get-right game and blow them out. But it wouldn't shock me if they come out a little sluggish on offense and, maybe have 2 quick 3-and-outs or 2 quick punts to start the game because they're trying to find the flow and shake off the last game. That would prove to me that they're different mentally and as a team, that they have the leadership they need. If they come out and just put their foot in Stanford's ass and get up 14-0 in the first quarter, that would make me feel like, all right, this team is different compared to past years. And that would help ease the PTSD.
All right, let's get to our mailbag. We've shown a lot of graphics today and broken down a lot of the issues with this team. So we may have already answered some of these mailbag questions, but we will jump on this here in a second. Is this question's here from Jake U80 J White on Twitter? Is this another letdown season, or do you think this team is built different and just had a bad game full of rat poison?
A lot of rat poison. I'll wait to see this Saturday to answer that. I think the way they responded defensively makes me feel real good against Louisville. The fact that they got back in that game, they made the plays necessary to get them back to have a chance to win. But your quarterback just had an epic meltdown, and that could stick with him. That's my concern. I don't know how Carson Beck is going to be mentally moving forward. I think as long as he, if his teammates rally around him, make him feel comfortable, and let him know, listen, all you have to do is take what's there. You don't have to do it all yourself. We've got guys that can make plays for you. We've got guys that can run the football. We have a good offensive line. Don't put it all on your shoulders. If he takes that approach moving forward, they should be fine. But if this puts him in a mental hole, right, like being exposed for secret DMs, it could be a long-lasting mental issue the rest of the season.
Rubicon or Cat 5 Hurricanes on Twitter says rugby scrum offense ain't getting it done. Just wanted to share that thought with us. I guess it's part of our mailbag. No, the rugby scrum offense is not getting it done. And in fact, there was another contributor, Jason Real Hip Hop, who's sent in questions before. It looks like a screenshot of a story. It says the Ducks need to mix it up in 2019. And it says Cristobal's emphasis on physicality is indirectly killing Oregon's offensive progress. The offensive staff is operating on the illusion that once the Ducks get more elite recruits up front, they will be able to beat most teams with a relatively simple approach, controlling the line of scrimmage and using a handful of basic rushing concepts to pound teams into submission. Unfortunately, that philosophy is misguided. So,
well, listen, let me, to their point. First of all, I said that before we even read it, so there you go. Great minds. But anyway, I think you can have just a few basic run concepts. That's not the issue. I'm not talking about having 1,000 plays in your bag. You don't need that as an offense because you can't get really good running 1,000 plays. If you have 5 or 6 run concepts you trust and you want that to be your base, you rep those and become elite at them. The problem is you can't just show them the same way every time. You have to get the defense to show their hand through formations, through motions, through different things to confuse them and not make it obvious what you're running when you're running it, right? That's what I'm talking about, getting to your base concepts in different ways and then forcing the defensive hands through alignment to make them be out of position with what you're trying to run.
Playing devil's advocate for a quick second, Carlos, do you think maybe part of the reason that's not happening is because they're having so many pre-snap penalties that he's not throwing more motion, that he's trying to just get them to do the basic stuff right?
No, he's never done that. It's not a case about the penalties, I think. But the other thing is, it's not the receivers jumping off; it's the offensive line. The offensive line doesn't have to move anywhere anyway. Regardless, the guys that are moving, you're moving tight ends, you're moving backs, you're moving receivers. You're not getting false starts from those guys or misalignments from those guys. You're getting that up front just from being static. So that is not it.
Okay. This is from Gingerman Can and Did to a Believer, which I can't believe to a
Believer. Oh, go please listen. Time to change the profile name, son. Time to change the profile name to Ewers Believer or Zach Wilson Believer, because we need to put Tua on that bench and forget about him. That right? What we need to do with Tua is, it reminds me of this scene from Bad Boys 2 when they're sitting in like the Best Buy kind of store and they're on the couch, and Mike looks at Martin's character Marcus and says, "We need to take the word flaccid and my mama's titties and put them in this box and throw them in the ocean, and you're gonna have to be Jacques Cousteau to find it." That's what we need to do with Tua.
Oh, brother, let me tell you, the ripping that Miami quarterbacks have taken in the last week here between Tua and Carson Beck for their interception show has been, I mean, the trolling on the internet has just been ridiculous. The amount of videos, the amount of just crap talking about the both of them. Carson Beck's got to show me something this week, man, because you know what? He's had 4 3-interception games now in the last 2 years. And whether you know all the mistakes were all on him or somebody else this past week, the bottom line is it still says 7 under the INTs. And like, if you're gonna have any prayer at making the NFL and getting drafted and having a career after this season, you better be on your P's and Q's the rest of the way here. and show teams that you can respond to that and kind of eradicate that kind of behavior where you're throwing that many interceptions. Just my opinion. But
yeah, the problem is that you've already got 5 years of tape on this guy now.
right.
There's
And so he is what he is.
He is what he is. Now, what you need to do is limit his mistakes by playing to his strengths and trying to avoid the things that get him in trouble. So what you need to do is create easy read opportunities for him, which Lane Kiffin, if you'll watch Ole Miss's offenses, and I think Saban did a good job breaking that down, I think it was this past weekend on game days, he creates easy read opportunities for his quarterbacks through formations. Like I said, to give the defense and make the defense tip their hands and make the read easy off RPOs or formationally, how they have to rotate the coverage to set up against the structure that the offense is presenting. Shannon Dawson doesn't do that. So that's the thing you need to do. Make it easy for your quarterback. Use your quick game. Get him rolling and play action. Carson Beck's numbers off play action are way better than just a straight drop back. Let me give you the numbers right here for the season. I hate to throw you a little statistical curveball here in the middle, but play action, Carson Beck is his completion percentage is 80.7% for the season. He's got 598 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 pick. His yards per attempt are 10.5 yards. His average is 8.5 for the season. And the other categories with no play action, it's 7.5. Okay, 7.5 yards. Mm-hmm. No play action, 68.6% completion percentage. That's where they need to go. They need to play off and complement off the run game.
He needs a running game. There's no doubt, and that's why we broke down the running game the way that we did today on the show. It's very important.
Or the threat of one.
Right. You need to create it. You need to create it, and it needs to come back if this team is going to do anything. All right. Question from Ginger Man Cannon to a believer. Mario. There's a comment. He says Mario can stop acting like every interview he does is being listened to by other teams or media that report to opposing coaches. So tired of his scripted BS. Not a fan of the Mario press conference, Ginger Man. And then he says, question for Carlos. As a QB, how much does QB IQ is natural? I couldn't read it. It wasn't written well. Question here. So sorry, Ginger.
How much QB's football IQ is natural, and how much of it is, I guess, is learned over
coaching?
Time.
Right. And he says, if fans on a couch can know situations, why can't Beck?
Well, first of all, he's not getting the same picture you're getting. Right. It's easier to see when we're above and seeing the entire defensive structure from up high, which is why I like offensive coordinators to be in the booth to call plays, not on the sideline, because you can see how the defense is playing and seeing the whole structure and see the whole game. So he's getting his picture from a flat level and 2-dimensional instead of 3-dimensional, right? I think a lot of what football IQ is one, you have to have a love for it, which means you have to be a student of the game and want to learn. And two, it's coaching. They have to teach you these things. It's not an innate thing where you could just pick this kind of stuff up, right? It's you adapt to it. You have a love for it. You start growing into it. So part of it is, you wanting to learn it. And the other thing is having a teacher that'll teach you this kind of stuff that can really break it down for you. And I think, like we talked about before with Shannon Dawson, he's not a great quarterback coach. We saw him take too long to try and correct Tyler Van Dyke down his last season with us, and did not ask Van Dyke what plays he likes, what sorts of things he likes to do until 2 games left in the season. And he ended up having 2 really good games to finish the season for the Hurricanes that year. So he's not one of these guys that's going to be a development of a quarterback. He's not a quarterback developer. He's a play caller in his mind. That's all he is.
Right. I think part of the issue with Carson Beck, and maybe I'm wrong, this is just a hypothesis. I think he's so hungry to prove that he's an elite quarterback sometimes that he is going to take chances and make a play that he can't make, or count on a player to make a play that they can't make. He did it at Georgia last year, even though he knew his receivers weren't good. He's done it here a couple of times. You don't throw that pass. You want to throw a pump fake at a defense, you don't do it against the number 1 ACC defense in passing efficiency. You don't do it to Keelan Marion, right? You don't throw that pass to Keelan Marion. You want to throw into triple coverage. Malachi Tony's a beast, but he's less than 6 feet tall. Why are you throwing in the triple coverage? It's that kind of decision-making that makes me question Carson Beck's IQ and his ability and his decision-making. And I think ultimately, like you said, he has a track record of it now. And
2 things with that.
You got to be smarter.
2 things with that. One, it's like you said, he wants to make the big play all the time. But what he needs to understand is the big plays don't have to come 40 yards downfield.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Malachi Tony, the plays he made in that game. Most of them were not 40 yards downfield. They were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and he just made plays with his legs. That's what great receivers do, and you need to trust your guys to make those plays. So take what they give you. And the second thing is you need to have a coach that puts a foot in your ass and tells you, okay, listen, this is what we're going to do. Take what the defense gives you. Don't try and make big plays all the time. And I think the third thing is he's not as good at reading coverage as Cam Ward was.
No, that's why that guy went first overall on the draft. I mean, he was special. People just don't want to hear that, Carlos.
Yeah, he doesn't process as well.
Columbus Kane asked this question. I want to know both of your takes on how the last 6 games play out. It's a good question, and a lot of people want to know the answer to that. Ralphie Rodriguez, another similar question. Any change to your preseason win-loss predictions halfway through the year? What do you feel? I mean, people are like, are they going to make the playoffs? There's
we
a lot
both
of
said 11-1. We both said 11-1. I wouldn't change that for now.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be scary games. They're going to get everything they can handle from SMU. I think they probably beat SMU just because their defense is nowhere near as good as Louisville's, and I don't think SMU's defense is anywhere what it was last year. And like you've been saying for a while, that pick game at the end of the season is scary.
Yeah, it's hard for me to envision them finishing 11-1 now after what we've seen. That another team was able to basically take Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor out of the game. That's what was making them special, was that those guys were so dominant. And it's a copycat deal, right? Once a coach figures you out, it's do you have a counterpunch, right?
Yeah.
Corey Heatherman, I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt to. I think Corey Heatherman is a really good young defensive coordinator. I think he'll find ways to keep Ruben Bain effective in a game, even when teams are cut blocking him. Maybe he drops him in the coverage, lets him pick off some. I don't know. I don't know what he does, but I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because in the end, against Louisville, they were playing a really elite play caller, didn't give up any points off of turnovers, and still held them to 24 points. So I think he's good.
And
my question is
and gave up 4 turnovers.
Yeah, my question is Shannon Dawson and Mario in the offense. And do they have enough playmakers? Why is Jordan Lyle not playing? Why is JoJo Trader not playing? Why are they ineffective? That's a question that I don't know that Shannon Dawson and Mario are going to answer with I don't know, a real response. That those guys all of a sudden become big-time playmakers. They haven't shown it to you through half the season. What's going to change over the last 6 games? So is somebody else capable of beating Miami? No doubt. Rhett Lashley can fool them. Pittsburgh can beat them. They have a good enough defense and enough guys on over there to beat them. So this could be a 9-3 team at the end of the season. I'm not ruling that out. So am I willing to change my preseason prediction? Yeah. I think they're going to lose one of those 2 games, and I think they're going to miss the playoff.
Wow.
Right now.
Yeah. So what you guys don't see is that hat that Manny has turned backwards has a Florida State logo on the back of it, just so you know. That's why he's just said that. But
well, let me ask you, Carlos. I mean, am I speaking out of my ass?
No, you're not. But I would counterpoint this way: they basically did everything wrong, and everything went wrong. They could have gone wrong in that game against Louisville, and they still had a shot to go into overtime with 36 seconds left. So
if they're going to go 11-1, it's because their defense gets them there. It's because
absolutely, and I trust that
Corey Heatherman dominates the second half of the season.
I agree, and I think they won't have another game where they miss 26 tackles. I think he does a good job of adjusting and really coaching these guys up. I think they'll be better defensively moving forward because of what they experienced against Louisville, because they got to see things they hadn't seen before. Now it's on tape. Now they get to make corrections and improve upon it. There will be different things that are thrown at them within games, but I don't think they'll see as many different things as they saw against Louisville. And they'll be prepared, even such, if there are things they don't understand or haven't seen, they'll be more prepared and disciplined for it moving forward. And I think the way you try and keep Bain in games and not have him be shut out like he was against Louisville is you have to move him around. You have to either stunt with him put him at tackle in obvious pass rushing situations, what they do on occasion, and then also have him and Mesidor at tackle. Swap around, maybe do a little bit of an odd front, do some 30 front stuff, have him line up off the line of scrimmage, almost as a linebacker, right? Not in a 3-point stance, and have him come that way to give him a little bit more momentum and not be allowed to be cut with his hand in the ground. Okay. Offensively, we already talked about what they have to do. I think if they do those things, make those slight corrections, I think they'll be in a position where they can win games. And I think with the defense, as long as you're not giving up 4 turnovers on offense, the defense will keep you in games and they can make some plays, get some turnovers, and put you in positions where you have short fields, and it makes it easier for you to score points, or at least enough to win.
So you're keeping the faith. I'm jumping off the bandwagon.
Yeah, I'm going 11-1. I'm going 11-1. As much as you guys feel that I'm a hater, I'm going 11-1.
Our boy.
Hang on one second. Let's see how much of a hater I am. Hang on. I'm in my office, right? This is my law practice office, and look what I keep in here.
Uh-oh. Here we go. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. What does Carlos have for us? There we go.
Tell me I'm a hater now. Tell me I'm a hater now. Tell me I'm not a Hurricanes fan now.
Sebastian, the Ibis. There you go. Well, people can't see it too well because of the green screen or whatever you're using there. So it's there you go. Now you got it. But yeah, I mean, we know your passion for this program. We know it's real. I known it. When I used to do my show on CBS, where you and your wife Joanna would come down and sit in the audience with like 20 other people and watch the show being filmed. I mean, it's real. Now you don't go to games anymore because you have that beautiful backyard and you enjoy sitting back there and being comfortable to watch the games. But
yeah, because I don't have to pay $18
you feel every loss.
Yeah, huh? I don't have to pay $18. I don't have to pay $18 a beer, deal with drunk fans or traffic to show my support.
That's right. All right, couple more questions here. Our boy Javier B, J-Boy 1724 says, "Get that he hit." My question last week was about Brom's scheme because I knew he was going to throw something out there we haven't seen. He says, "What do you see the problem being from the coaching perspective for Miami?" We talked a lot about it, Javi, but I just wanted to make sure we read your question on here. Johnny Manson, Jay on Twitter says, "Do you guys think 3 ACC teams can make the playoffs this season? Hypothetical scenario: Georgia Tech, Virginia, Miami go undefeated the rest of the season, and the ACC championship game is close. I don't know how they could justify leaving out a team in that scenario." Johnny, what was Florida State's record when they got left out of the 14 playoff?
Were they not undefeated?
They were 13-0. I don't know if you guys are catching on to this or not, but the Big Ten and the SEC are going to have the majority of the college football playoff spots. So if Miami goes 11-1 and Georgia Tech goes undefeated and wins the ACC championship and Miami doesn't even get to play them, is there a scenario where I think the Hurricanes potentially get screwed out of a playoff spot? I would say it's probably 10% if they're 11-1, but I wouldn't rule it out completely, especially if there are a lot of SEC and Big Ten teams that also go 11-1, and even Notre Dame. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the shows lately. People are like, "Oh, this Notre Dame team, they're better. They're so good. They're a top 10 team." They're already creating the narrative, brother. Even though Miami beat Notre Dame, I'm telling you, like, and Miami needs USF to keep playing well. They need Notre Dame to keep playing well. If Notre Dame falls off, that's great. There's one less team for them to compete for a playoff spot, but I think it really hurts.
But it
Miami's
also hurts them
schedule.
because
yes.
It also hurts them because they beat Notre Dame.
Right, exactly, and they need USF. USF winning the G5 and making the playoff is good for Miami. Notre Dame going 10-2 is good for Miami. They need those things. It's a resume building thing now, especially if you can't get to the ACC championship.
And there's, like you said, there's always that chance to get screwed. So you're saying there's a chance. Now that's back weeks with Jim Carrey movie references. There you go.
Brooksville Kane says, "Does Coach Mario Cristobal need a offensive coordinator with a better grasp of play calling and a better understanding of how to control the game and not let so many teams hang around? Someone with a more killer instinct when it comes to calling plays."
I don't know.
You don't know the answer to that one.
I don't think I've ever spoken on that. I'll leave that there.
Brent Peterson, would it be better for Miami to go 11-1 and not play in the ACC championship game because Georgia Tech and UVA went out? All right, we've kind of
that would be a no. I would say no.
Yeah, you want to get to the ACC championship game. Last year, the ACC championship loser SMU got into the playoff. Did they not? What's the story with JoJo Trader? This is from Steven Thunder, 56 Blacks again. What's the story with JoJo Trader? Is he just fighting for playing time in a crowded room, or is it something bigger? I don't know if you noticed this. I pay too much attention to Twitter sometimes when I'm working. But I think Lamar Jackson during the Louisville game actually tweeted out something in reference to JoJo Trader. Lamar's obviously from South Florida. JoJo is a guy is a super talented player. Played obviously on the South Florida Express 7-on-7 team. I'm sure he knows Lamar through that. But ultimately, it's a sign to me that JoJo Trader ain't gonna be here next year. Is the way I look at it. He's just not on the field, and players who don't get on the field and are talented get angry because they're not playing. And to me, there's a reason the coaching staff isn't putting him out there. Whatever he's doing in practice probably isn't enough. And it's
And
crazy because the way they talked about this guy in the preseason is
right,
ridiculous. Just does not line up.
I think it was unfair expectations for this kid, not just coming into the season, but coming out of high school. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think the high school numbers and performance warranted the hype. They thought he was, near the level of Jeremiah Smith, not at the same level, just because they were teammates. The kid didn't put up a whole lot of numbers with the best receiver in the country across him. I mean, he should have gotten a lot of single coverage and put up more numbers, but he didn't. I think he's a really good kid, and I really want him to work out for the Hurricanes just because I see when he gets on the field, he's willing to do the dirty stuff and willing to work hard. I just don't know what the answer is for him not getting on the field.
I said this about JoJo when he was in the 11th grade and then in the 12th grade. I said this on recruiting podcasts. I had this conversation with Roland Smith, who was his high school coach at Central when he was a sophomore. I think JoJo Trader is a first-round pick defensive back. I think at cornerback or safety, he is a first-round pick. I think at receiver, he's not built to take a pounding the way
Oh,
that
whoa,
you
whoa,
take
whoa,
a
whoa, whoa,
pounding.
whoa, 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 Manny, listen. This is back-to-back weeks where you're making overtly sexual references. Let's keep that to a minimum now, please.
All right. I think we're going to wrap that up there. Hobby J Boy has one more thing. He says, no second question, just a statement. Miami played like prey, not a predator against Louisville. If they believe they have the athletes, then they need to play like the aggressor on both sides. I know it's more complicated than that, but scheme sometimes reveals attitude. I think he's right. All right, Carlos, we've done a really long show here, and I appreciate all the time you've given. Is there a final thought here as we look forward to Saturday night's game against Stanford and hopefully a Miami victory for the Canes fans out there?
I would say don't jump off the ledge just yet. Unlike Manny, who wants you to just jump immediately right now, right? Manny's trying to put you in that mafia situation where you've got concrete cinder blocks tied to your legs are in concrete. He's throwing you down in the water. You're tied up. You're done, right? He wants you to sleep with the fishes, like Luca Brazzi is what Manny wants you to do. Not me. I'm telling you to slow down. Yes, I hammer this team a lot. They're built for a pounding, but I just point out the flaws, and I think they're correctable flaws. I don't think they're fatal flaws. That's the important thing. I think they're things they can get right. Now, are they willing to make those corrections? Are they capable as a staff and as a team of making those corrections? We're going to see on Saturday if they are or not. If they come out and they beat the shit out of Stanford and they do so in a disciplined, effective, efficient way, I will feel a whole lot better going into SMU. If they go out there and they win by 10 and it's all helter-skelter, willy-nilly, we got a problem because SMU is going to have something for them. The only thing that SMU doesn't have is a defense. But I can guarantee you offensively, Rhett Lashley's going to have something for that. So they better be prepared coming in.
All right. My final thought here is Miami in the first half comes out looking like a top 10 team, then I might jump back on the they can finish it bandwagon. But if they don't, if I'm sitting there at halftime and you and I are texting each other and I'm saying, "Yep, I was right," and you're saying, "Yep, you were right," then we know what the answer is. I think the first two quarters of that Stanford game is going to tell us a lot about the character of this team. And I'm willing to bet, Carlos, that behind the scenes, we went over the snap counts earlier. It's natural. There are a lot of guys on this team who probably are upset they aren't playing. And I'm not in that locker room, but I'm willing to bet that the competitors that are in there that aren't contributing are upset. And chemistry in the locker room is very, very important. Your quarterback just had a 4-interception game. He needs to get his head on straight. There's a lot to overcome here going into the second half of the season. Mario Cristobal and this coaching staff got their asses handed to them. They got to prove that they can put together a good game plan and dominate an inferior opponent who's flying halfway across the country or completely across the country to come play you. They don't do that on Saturday. I don't know where this program goes, because a second consecutive loss, is a heavy favorite or a scare. We have a lot of people jumping off the bandwagon, bro. And
And
I'm
listen,
going to be the least of your concerns.
yeah, I'm with you. And here's the thing: the great teams of the past for this university, they responded to these kinds of things because they held each other accountable, and then
Mm-hmm.
they pushed each other to be better. Because the backups would say, "Why are you on the field playing over me if we're not getting the results we want? I'm going to bust my ass in practice and earn playing time and take your playing time to prove that I deserve to play ahead of you and make these things, correct these issues that we had. I'll be the answer." How many of
Right.
those guys are on that roster right now? Does the coaching staff hold themselves accountable? Do those players hold the players themselves? Do they hold each other accountable and push each other to get better? Let's see what happens.
Yep. All right, it's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. We will be back post Stanford to talk about the SMU game and the movement into the month of November. Should be very, very interesting game. I think Miami wins on Saturday, but I'm not predicting a blowout. I think this will be a 2-touchdown, 17 type point game where we're still feeling a little uneasy going into the final stretch, going into the month of November.
God, I hope not, because I'm getting too many hangovers and I can't deal with it.
All right, Carlos, thanks for jumping on. Make sure you follow Carlos at MIA Ledo, right?
Yeah, that's, I think,
On Twitter.
whatever.
And then Manny_Navarro. That's where you follow me on Twitter. We'll be back next week with more show.
Peace.